Hello, my friends. We are out here in the park. You're going to hear a lot of ambient stuff, and I'm here to deliver to you the coach's guide to developing sustainable motivation. As a youngster, I was pummeled constantly with ideas and visions and creative ideas, and I was constantly starting things, starting big schemes, things that would rock the world, things that would be quite amazing, and I was always inspired by these visions, but I would never be able to complete them. Looking back on it, it's possible that I had at least a mild form of ADHD because I couldn't have the discipline that I needed to follow through on things. And so instead, what I would do is I would end up starting a lot of stuff and abandoning them once they got pretty difficult, when I got to a certain point of difficulty. And I would take that thing and just throw it onto the graveyard of things that I started and never completed. And eventually this started to really mess with my self-esteem, right? It would with anyone's. Like, imagine just not being able to follow through on anything. It's brutal. And it would cause me to really doubt myself too. It's like, okay, like what if because I had this really strong sense of like, there's all sorts of things that I'm capable of. I'm smart, I can figure things out. Like, I should be able to do a lot of cool and fun and interesting things in the world. But then after a certain amount of failure, after a certain amount of giving up on things, it messes with your ability to see yourself that way. And so it messed with my self-esteem. So eventually this problem arrived front and center in my life. It was something I just had to figure out how to solve. How? It's a question I've asked so many times. How do you get yourself to do something that is good for you that you don't want to do? How do you do it? It should be easy. Why does it seem so difficult? And so then this became a study of mine, and eventually it became a coaching practice. And then it became territory that I've mapped deeply with a deep, deep understanding. And I've more recently realized I understand it better than most people. And then now what that means is that I can do stuff. I have fantastic self-discipline. I work out, I exercise, I don't drink alcohol, I sleep through the night, I go to sleep on time, none of my habits are out of control, I do things without procrastinating, I do work without procrastinating, my sense of priorities are in order, my room is clean, my desktop is clean, I don't have too many tabs, I live with a sense of balance. There's recreation and enjoyment as well as hard work. And so I'm saying this as a vision for you that you could be in a spot like this too, if you just know how to come at this work properly. And so that is the guide that I'm going to share with you. I'm giving you this guide because I coach people to do this, but because the first few conversations that I have with new clients is basically the same. This is basically what we cover. You can consider this to be a $500 video that if you were willing to invest in it, if you were willing to learn what I'm going to share with you. And even though we might be strangers, and even though we might have never have met, I want to reassure you that you will come out of this much wealthier with a much better understanding of how to get yourself to do something. So that's what we're doing. If we never met, my name is Brent. Good to meet you. Hit like on the video, would you, if you're interested in what we're going to get to. Here we go. So this is for you if your life is in disarray, in chaos. This is for you if you struggle getting started and following through. And this is for you if you procrastinate. This video is for you if those apply. This is the info that you need to turn your life around and get organized. And it's the info that you need if you are in chaos. Like if you're behind on so many things and everything is urgent and you don't even know where to start. And sometimes it can get so bad, right, where like there's so much to do that you almost look at the whole thing like a dark cloud and just like turn away entirely, and ironically end up wasting like way too much time like on your phone or something. But just because the work is so overwhelming, there's just no way to attack it. There's no way to even prioritize. Like, how do you prioritize? What do you prioritize if like every room in your house is on fire? It's just like overwhelming, right? And it's also info that will help you get your most important work done. So there are some mindset shifts that we need to begin with in order to enter into this. And the first one is that what we're talking about here is going to take time. And it's essential now, before we proceed, it's essential now for you to accept that these changes take time, that we are building muscle, or to use a different metaphor, we are planting seeds. You need to be willing to allow time to pass, and you need to be willing to be patient. There's an interesting phenomenon that I notice where when we're in a place where we're taking action, typically, like if we're going to the gym, if we get ourselves to do hard work, we demand instant results and we get impatient. But when we're not doing hard work and we're not really on any sort of discipline or routine, we don't have any structure, life is just kind of going in a chaotic way, we have a way of saying, oh, this is fine, this is sustainable, I can do this isn't a problem. And so we're patient. And so we want to bring patience and structure into the same room. The idea here is that you're doing shit, but also not being demanding on the results coming to you. Another one is that what we're doing, you will find, is easy. It's very easy to grasp. There's a certain amount of perspective shifting that needs to happen, but it's broadly easy. I'm not going to share anything that is terribly complicated, I don't think. But it's not, it's simple, but it's not easy. Easy to understand, but not easy to implement. And this is something to just simply expect and accept, that we are moving in the direction of difficulty. I'm pointing you towards something difficult, something that will require effort. And if you are willing to accept that, then we are well positioned to move into our discussion. The final mindset shift, we covered it. I was going to say it requires discipline to act and be patient. That's what we spoke about. Good. Okay. So here we need to do a little bit of background info so that you can approach this properly, and then we're going to get into the mechanics and get into the practicum of how to do it. So here's the first concept for you to understand. I want you to understand the child and adult mechanic. For those of us who aren't disciplined, and for those of us who live in chaos, our personality is split along the lines of child and adult. And what that means is that we will alternate between embodying one or the other. When it is 8 p.m. or 10 p.m. on a Friday, or let's just say it's 1 a.m. on a Tuesday night where you're just staying up so late, that is you acting as the child. And the child says, I can do this and get away with it. And it'll say like, it's 1 a.m. I really should go to sleep, but I'm going to stay up a little bit later because I deserve it. I'm going to stay up a little bit later because you only live once. I'm just going to keep staying up because this is my only time that I get to myself. And so you want to be aware of the way in which you make behavior that doesn't serve you okay. What sort of language and what sort of explanations do you give to make it okay to do something that is clearly not in your best interest? This is you being the child. And then when you wake up the next morning and you're extremely tired and you have to get to work and you're feeling grumpy and maybe you're rushing off to work because you slept into the last possible minute, this is you being the adult. And as the adult, you say, God damn it, I can't believe I did it again. So angry at myself. Well, I can't complain. I brought this on myself. One of these days I'll have to figure it out. Maybe I'll never figure it out. And this is the adult because it's the voice of reason and rationality, and it's trying to, it's sort of angry at the child and disappointed with the child. So in the morning you're the adult, in the evening you're the child, and these two do not talk to each other. And so that's part of the problem. That's what creates the problem. It's similar to a Looney Tunes kind of cartoon, say Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner, where sometimes you're the coyote and sometimes you're the Roadrunner. So that's something to know. Now, something else to know about motivation. Here is an insider understanding about motivation. I'm really pleased to share this with you. Is that there's not just one type of motivation, but there are three. The first one is emotional motivation. Emotional motivation. These are terms that I'm coining now in this video. Emotional motivation is Tony Robbins style motivation, or what you get when you listen to music that pumps you up, like music you'd listen to at the gym, or when somebody says, you can do it, rah, get out there, and somebody is pumping emotional energy into you to go do something. This is one of the least effective forms of motivation. because it's very short term. It tends to go away as soon as you leave that environment and go into your work. The second type of motivation is called dopamine motivation or dopaminergic motivation. And this is what happens when you try something new for the first time. Let's say you go out of your comfort zone and you join a new club, or you try a form of workout or exercise that you've never done before. When you move into the territory of the unknown, it has a very positive dopaminergic effect on us, and it makes us feel really good about ourselves. It kind of gives us a boost in our self-esteem, makes us esteem our ability more highly than we otherwise would, and then that can last for a few days or for up to a week, depending. And you'll find yourself naturally inclined to do this thing that's good for you. It's wholesome. It's a good activity. And if you are not savvy to it, you'll think, oh, I found a way to be motivated. Sorry, 1 second here. I found a way to find sustainable motivation forever, but it usually only lasts for a few days or maybe a week or so at maximum. So it's better than the emotional motivation, but it's not permanent either. So the third form of motivation, and this is the one that we are going to focus on today, is systemic motivation. Systemic motivation refers to the stuff that you have to do. And we're going to get into that. This is going to be very, very central. So not yet. There's one more thing, but we're going to get into that one. I'm really excited about that one. And then finally, the important concepts. So we did the child and adult dynamic for you to know the different forms of motivation. So the third one is the correct level of attachment. This is something you have to understand. Now, we're going to use systemic motivation, which is going to be extremely powerful. But the problem with it is that it's sometimes so powerful that it can be a little overwhelming, and you run the risk of burning out on it very quickly and actually ending up depressed if you don't apply it in the right way, because you'll think, oh man, I failed myself. This is just so terrible. And so what you want to do is, as we enter into this next section of the conversation, it's important for you to have the correct amount of attachment. So you're going to arrive at this where you're going to give it a lot of effort, really give it your all. But all that we're interested in here is not whether or not you succeeded, but the degree of success that you've created. We want to see success as a percentage. So if we create a plan for you to follow, and if you only succeed, say 10%, the responsible and mature way of approaching this is to celebrate the extent of the success that you've created, which otherwise would have been zero had we not had this conversation. We say, great, 10% is a hell of a lot more than nothing. Let's see if you can get at least that on the next iteration, if not more. So aim for at least 10% and ideally 20. And then now we have created a flow structure. Now we've created a game. Now we're having fun. Just see if you can beat your record. Just beat your record, get it up to 20%, then we'll get it up to 30 from there. And then we have a working thing, a working system that we can take with us onward and upward. Good. Let us now talk about systemic motivation. Systemic motivation means that whatever this thing is, you have to do it. So an example is if you have a flight to catch in the morning. Let's say you spent $1,500 on a round trip flight for a vacation that you've prepaid for in Thailand, assuming you don't live in Thailand. And in order to catch the flight lifts off at 6 a.m., which means you have to be at the airport at say 4 or 3 a.m., which means you have to be up at 2 a.m. What are you going to do in order to get out of bed on time to make sure you catch your flight? The answer is you'll do whatever you have to do, whether that's to set 2 alarms, whether it's to put the phone on the other side of the bed so that you have to get out of bed in order to get out of bed on time, whether you have a friend call you at 2 a.m. and you pay him $10 to do it. You do whatever you have to do, right? What you don't do is say, all right, well, I'll try my best and we'll see what happens. That's not something you say. You won't say something like, I'm not going to put too much pressure on myself. I'm just going to, I'll just go for it, right? you're just going to catch that flight, not as a matter of guilt tripping yourself, not as a matter of shame or even as a matter of pride, but just because you really, really, really don't want to miss that flight. It's basically, it's an unacceptable outcome for you to miss that flight. So that is motivation. That is systemic motivation. What you will also notice, what I've noticed in a lot of people, is that when we have a job, if we're on somebody's payroll and they're paying us to do something, we're employed by them, and they tell us to get out of bed on time, we'll do it. You know, whether happily or reluctantly, we may be a few minutes late, but we get there on time. We do whatever we have to do to not get fired. Furthermore, even if we're not getting paid, imagine a friend needed your help. A friend asked you to help them move or just needed you to go pick up a package for them or something. You would 100% do it. If you're like most people, you would just do it. And it would be unacceptable for you to not do it, like to let down your friend. It would be something that you're just unwilling to experience. So you would just make that thing happen almost certainly. So what this demonstrates to us, if you're happy with what I'm laying down so far, is that you have the necessary software, say, to do stuff, to do things, like to get things done, to have a task assigned to you and do it. And these are things that you have to do, but it's not like, you have to do it like somebody's cracking a whip at you, but just like you're just unwilling to not do it. It's just something that you clearly have to do because you're unwilling to experience the consequence of not doing it. So all of that is in place, right? And this is really valuable. So now what we're discussing, we're just going to make an extra leap here to talk about doing things that serve your best interest and will allow you to create the life of your dreams and manifest your potential. The problem is that you are giving yourself something to do. You're assigning yourself work to do. And for whatever reason, we just tend not to take that very seriously. If somebody tells us to do something, we tend to take that seriously, but not when we tell ourselves to do it. In fact, what happens is if we give ourselves something to do, like to wake up at a certain time and go to the gym in the morning, we likely push back. And our reasoning for pushing back is like, well, I hate having to do something. Excuse the train. I hate it when I have to do something. This is just an unacceptable thing. Like I prefer to be free. I want my freedom. And so we rebel. We often see ourselves as, rebels and bucking the system and refusing to be boxed in. And so we rebel against the structure that we are trying to put ourselves in. We refuse to follow our own leadership. And you will remember what we were talking about early regarding the child and adult dynamic, which comes into play here. So our task now at this point of the conversation is to bridge this little gap, how to position you so that you are willing to have to do something for yourself. And I'll just include one more point here for consideration for the sake of completeness on this concept, is that there really is, at the end of the day, no such thing as having to do something. I have a video, one of my favorite videos that I ever made, which is how to be free of obligation, something along those lines. You can search term Brent Harris obligation and it'll come up for you. And I make an observation in this video that there's nothing that you have to do, period. That you exist in a world of choices and consequences, whether it's brushing your teeth, whether it's feeding your child, whether it's going to work, whether it's paying your taxes, whether it's staying hydrated. Everything is choice. You make your own choices from a place of choices and consequences. And so this concept of have to is sort of an imaginary one, and it applies across the board. But nevertheless, we're going to use it as a term for doing something in your best interest. So, practically speaking now, here's how we solve this problem. We solve it by giving you something to do and then having you do it. Now, how you structure this will depend on how willing you are to follow your own guidance, how willing you are to find your own leadership, follow your own leadership. Because most people that come to me to work with, usually this relationship between word and action is in great disrepair. And a lot of you are unwilling or unable to do even the smallest thing for yourself. So that's precisely where we will start. Choose one thing. Typically this has to do with sleep. This is the best place to start because sleep is the backbone of fucking everything. There's, if you're not sleeping well, then it makes it hard to lose weight, get strong, go to the gym, do work, read, meditate, develop a hobby, a skill, anything. So sleep first. And we may speak about just getting to bed on time. Get to bed on time. Ask yourself, when is the proper time for you to get to bed and get to bed on time? For you, it might be, it's maybe like 10 p.m., but you're lately going to bed at 2 a.m. every day. Let's just say you decide to jump in cold turkey. Let's just say you're really kind of feeling full of the Holy Spirit and you want to jump into this. So get to bed by 10 p.m. The key here, the key to doing this is to, number one, recognize that there's nothing that I can say or that anyone can say that will do this for you. So what I'm offering to you now is very much a do it. This is an act of volition. This is an act of intention. This is something that you cannot be tricked into doing. You can't trick yourself into doing it. It's something that you do. I'm slowing down here because I get the most pushback around here. I post a lot on Reddit and a lot of people come at me for what I'm about to say here. All the psychology, if you have any psychology, which is to say, if you have any beliefs about yourself, any convictions about yourself that would tell you that you cannot do this, those ideas are wrong. It may be the case that you are extremely unwilling to follow your own instruction, but this can be replaced with a willingness. If for whatever reason you feel like 10 p.m. is just not doable for you, then start easier. If it's usually 2 a.m., then start with 1 a.m. or 1:30. And now here's what I want you to acknowledge about this. Please listen carefully. Is that we can continue to adjust the difficulty in any way that you wish. So if it's usually 2 a.m. that you go to bed, I could say to you, fine, go to bed by 1:45, 15 minutes earlier than usual. And I'm forcing you to admit that either this is too difficult for you, in which case we adjust to 1:59, or that you can do it. And so let's just say, for the sake of argument, that 1:45 is what we agree on. This is the difference between your usual 2 a.m. and the 1:45 that we're suggesting is so small that there's practically no difference, that the difference is, practically speaking, symbolic. It's a symbol. It's an offering to yourself. It's a gift to yourself in the form of an offering. And if you are particularly feisty, and if you're fighting against me, then you're going to flip to the other side. Please listen carefully. You will flip to the other side and then accuse me of saying, well, like that you're just being too nice, you're being too gentle, you're wasting my time. This is a waste of my time. What's the point? This is not, what kind of difference is this going to make if I go to bed at 2 a.m. as opposed to 1:45? I may as well just go to bed at 2 or 3 a.m. Do you see how there's a temptation to talk out of both sides of your mouth at this point? Because there's an aspect of you that is fighting against this very conversation. Notice how you are brought to the point of this conversation, but now you are resisting now that it's time to actually do something. And so either the goal that we set is too difficult that it can't be done, you just can't do it, or it's too easy that it's not worth doing. So see that this is the major point of resistance. Is going to bed at 1:45 beyond your ability? Of course not. And are you going too easy on yourself such that there's no benefit, there's no point in even doing it? Of course not. Because we start with a symbol. As we were establishing earlier, we are planting seeds. This is a long game that we're playing, my friend. This is a long game. This will take months. This will take years. But we are investing in something that accrues interest over time. If you're willing to stick with me on just this video alone and follow this through by just listening to it and following this logic, then you are angling your life in an entirely different way. Your path is going to unfold in an entirely different way, and it will create benefits that will compound interest on top of themselves over time. It starts with something symbolic. It starts with you symbolizing that you are willing to follow your own leadership. You are willing to follow your own guidance. And you are acknowledging to yourself, please acknowledge now, that following your own guidance and your own leadership is not to become a slave, is not to be boxed in, is not to be bossed around or taking orders, or to be giving up your sovereignty. I've spoken a lot on YouTube and on TikTok about different forms of freedom. There's the one form of freedom of I can eat as many Oreos as I want. That's a freedom that you have, but then you sacrifice, you give up that lower freedom for a higher freedom, a higher form of sovereignty, which is to submit to a structure that will allow you to manifest your potential, to actualize your dreams, to do the work that you came into this world to do. So it starts small. It starts symbolic. The victory is giving yourself something to do and then doing it. It's an act of faith, an act of good faith. It's an act of connecting the child and the adult together so that they become one integrated version of you. Now, a few extra tips to do this and a few extra tips to make this into a have-to. So I would invite you to ask, and even pause the video and figure this out if you have to. What brings us together? What are we doing here? We are 27, almost 30 minutes into a conversation here, and you're still watching. What is this for? What is your vision? What is the highest vision that you can possibly muster for yourself? How high do you dare imagine your life could get? How good could it get? Where do you go in your imagination, and what becomes available even beyond that when you do? Why would that be worth it? Why would that be worth the effort? What's the most important thing for you to do in this lifetime before you croak? Figure that out. And let me ask you, do you have to? Do you have to? Do you have to? This vision you have for yourself, whether it's wealth, riches, fame, love, innovation, creativity, expressing your art, scientific discovery, spiritual awakening, philosophical breakthrough, learning languages, traveling, learning to cook, mastering your hobbies, writing your book. What was I going with this? Do you have to? Do you have to do that thing? Is it necessary or not? It is. Well, if it is, then that's what happens when you get to step 1000 of this journey. What do you think step 1 is? Going to bed on time. Can you arrive at step 1000 if you do not complete step 1? No. No. Step 1000 will not take place unless step 1 happens. So do you have to manifest your potential, do your stuff, create your success, live the life of your dreams? Do you have to? Is it necessary? Of Great. Well, then that means getting to bed on time is necessary. And if it comes time, when 9 p.m. comes around and you're considering staying up a little bit later, notice what you say to yourself in order to make it okay to stay up, to break your promise to yourself. How do you make it okay? Notice the reluctance to follow through on your promise. Look at how everything in you resists following through on your promise. I don't envy you. It's hard. We acknowledge that in the beginning. This is hard. But what you can do is you can say to yourself, if I'm unwilling to go to sleep at 10, it's basically saying I'm unwilling to accomplish my dreams. Now, before I was saying you want the correct level of attachment because this is an extremely hardcore systemic motivation system that we're setting up for you. It's very hardcore. Can you feel it? It's very intense. And so then, let's just say you're a week or 2 weeks into it and there's something in you that's pushing back really hard. And let's say you fuck it up and you go to bed too late. Then if you're not careful, then you can fall into self-abuse and self-pity and it will really set you back. At which case you want to remember this principle of correct level of self-attachment. It's okay. Like it really is okay. But only after the fuck up is it okay to let yourself off the hook. That's the rule of thumb. This is systemic motivation. You can combine this with emotional motivation and you can combine this with dopaminergic motivation. So when you do it for the first time, like when you do this, man, you go to bed at 10 and let's say you get to sleep and you wake up at the right time, you're going to feel like $1,000,000, my friend. You're going to feel so good. You know it too. You're going to feel so good. And then you're going to feel like you can conquer anything, which is essentially correct. And then this will go on for a few days. You'll find it easy for the next few days to keep it going. That's the dopaminergic hit. And then it'll wear off. And you want to be ready for that. Be ready for it. And then finally, here's a caveat, is that you can use this system that I'm offering to you to your great benefit. But something that we did not address, but I have addressed in other videos, is that when it comes time to do your work and when you set yourself up so that you have to do your work exactly in the same way that you have to catch your flight, it doesn't necessarily speak to the reasons that you have for not doing your work. For example, if you're trying to get yourself to post on social media, there's a lot of stuff that you have to go through. You may feel self-conscious, you may feel like a fraud, you may feel like you have nothing interesting to say, you may feel like everybody's judging you, and all of that will make you want to procrastinate, and that's like friction in the gears. So using what we're describing here is like, putting your foot on the accelerator pedal, but your foot is also on the brake pedal, and that will create a lot of friction in your system. And so there's a separate conversation to have about removing the friction and doing your work. I recommend any of my videos on the flow state. I talk about this. So you search term Brent here as YouTube flow state, and you'll learn about that too. And I'll have a lot to say about that in the future as well. So that's it, my friends. Thank you for watching. If you're interested in one-on-one work, you can find a link for that below where I tell you all about it. You can always get a free coaching overview session. And what that means, it's a free session. We'll just talk. We'll see if working with me is the correct move for you, and we'll talk about that. That's available for you. I also have a free PDF download on self-actualization and a super cool follow-up course that I'll send to your inbox by opting in below. There's a link for that below as well. Subscribe if this has been valuable for you, and I love you. I'll talk to you soon.